June 25th, 2009, 12:21 p.m., Los Angeles, California. A 911 call comes in from a mansion in the Holmby Hills neighborhood. The voice on the line is panicked. Someone is not breathing. Paramedics rush to the address. They arrive in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. But by the time they get there, something has already gone terribly wrong. Not in the last 3 minutes. Not even in the last 3 hours. What happened inside that bedroom that morning has never been fully explained. And the man who was supposed to have all the answers, the only other person in that room, waited. He waited before calling 911. He waited before telling paramedics the truth about what drugs were in Michael Jackson's body. He waited so long that one of Jackson's own staff members had to make the emergency call themselves. The official story says it was an accident. A doctor made a mistake. A superstar paid for it with his life. Case closed. But here is what they did not tell you. Michael Jackson told his own family, months before he died, that he was going to be murdered. He said it repeatedly. He named the reason. He told his sister LaToya, "It's because of my catalog." He told his children. He told people close to him. And then, on a warm June morning in Los Angeles, he stopped breathing in a bedroom with the world's most dangerous drug pumping through his veins. A drug that has no business being in anyone's home, let alone a bedroom with no monitoring equipment, no crash cart, and a doctor who was on the phone talking to his girlfriends. This is not just the story of how Michael Jackson died. This is the story of what was in that room, what that drug does to a human body, who had access to it, who had a reason to make sure Michael Jackson never made it to London, and why the most powerful people connected to his death walked away completely free. Stay with me. Because this story goes places the mainstream media never wanted to follow. Let's start with the drug itself. Because to understand how Michael Jackson died, you first have to understand what was found in his body, and why finding it there is one of the most disturbing things in this entire case. Propofol. That is what killed Michael Jackson. The Los Angeles County coroner concluded it after the autopsy. Death from acute propofol intoxication, combined with other sedatives, ruled a homicide. Now, what is propofol? It is a powerful surgical anesthetic, a drug so potent, so fast-acting, so dangerous, that it is only supposed to be administered in hospital operating rooms, with trained anesthesiologists standing by, with monitoring equipment tracking every breath, every heartbeat, every drop in oxygen levels. It is the same drug used to put people under for major surgery. It is not a sleeping pill. It is not a sedative you give someone at home. It is not something that belongs anywhere near a bedroom. Medically speaking, propofol knocks you out within seconds of injection. It stops your brain from maintaining consciousness. And when it wears off, which it does very quickly, the person wakes up. This is exactly why it is used in surgery. You can control how long someone stays under. Precise, powerful, dangerous. Doctors who searched medical literature from 1992 to 2009 found 45 published cases of propofol abuse. 40 of those 45 involved medical professionals, and 18 of those people died. 18. This is a drug that kills even the people who are trained to use it. Now, imagine it in a private bedroom. No monitors, no oxygen backup, no resuscitation equipment ready. Just a man lying in a bed and a doctor who was supposed to be watching him every single second. Because with propofol, one moment of inattention is the difference between sleep and death. Michael Jackson had a name for it. He called it his milk, because of its white, milky appearance when it comes out of the bottle. He had been using it as a sleep aid for years, a fact that is itself staggering. Propofol as a sleep aid. Propofol, the surgical anesthetic. The man could not sleep, and somewhere along the way, someone had introduced him to the most dangerous possible solution to that problem. According to Conrad Murray, the doctor who was at Jackson's side that morning, he had been treating Jackson for insomnia for about 6 weeks leading up to the death. Every night, he was giving Jackson 50 milligrams of propofol through an IV line just to get him to sleep. Every single night. Murray later told police that he had grown concerned Jackson was becoming addicted and had begun trying to wean him off it, cutting the dose to 25 milligrams and mixing it with other sedatives. Lorazepam, midazolam, diazepam, a cocktail of drugs powerful enough to sedate a person several times over. On the night of June 24th, the night before Jackson died, Murray tried to put Jackson to sleep without propofol at all. He gave him Valium at 1:30 in the morning, then more drugs, then more. For hours, Jackson could not sleep. At 10:40 a.m. on the morning of June 25th, after being awake all night and still unable to sleep, Jackson asked Murray for his milk, and Murray gave it to him. 25 milligrams of propofol, injected into the IV line, and then Conrad Murray left the room. This is the part of the story that should have ended Conrad Murray's defense before it ever began. Because what happened next, what Murray himself admitted, is almost incomprehensible. Murray said he stepped away briefly. He said he was gone for only 2 minutes. But here is what the phone records showed. In the time surrounding Jackson's death, Murray made 3 phone calls totaling 47 minutes. 47 minutes. He was not gone for 2 minutes. He was on the phone with his girlfriends, multiple women, while Michael Jackson lay unconscious in his bedroom with propofol in his bloodstream. Propofol does not give you 47 minutes of safety. It does not allow a patient to be left alone. This drug requires continuous monitoring of oxygen levels, blood pressure, and breathing. Any trained anesthesiologist will tell you that. Even a brief interruption in monitoring can be fatal. The drug can cause a person to stop breathing, and there is absolutely no warning, no gasping, no noise, nothing. One moment the person is under, the next moment they are gone. When Murray returned to the room, Jackson was not breathing. Murray attempted CPR. He did not call 911. He performed CPR for an undetermined amount of time. Estimates range from minutes to over an hour, before a member of Jackson's staff finally made the emergency call. And when paramedics arrived, Murray did not tell them about the propofol, the drug that was the entire reason Jackson's heart had stopped, the drug that paramedics needed to know about in order to treat him correctly. Murray said nothing about it. Jackson was transported to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, where resuscitation efforts continued for more than an hour before he was pronounced dead at 2:26 p.m. He was 50 years old. The autopsy confirmed what Murray had concealed. Propofol and a combination of sedatives were found in Jackson's system. No fingerprints belonging to Michael Jackson were found on any of the propofol bottles recovered from the bedroom, not a single one. Murray's defense team argued that Jackson had self-administered the fatal dose, that while Murray stepped out, Jackson woke up, somehow functioning despite already being heavily sedated, and injected himself. The chief forensic examiner from the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office called this scenario less reasonable in the most diplomatic way possible. The autopsy found no precision dosing device in that bedroom, no way to accurately measure how much propofol was being given, just a doctor estimating amounts of a surgical anesthetic in the middle of a private home. Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in 2011 and sentenced to 4 years in prison. He served about 2 years before being released. 2 years. For the death of Michael Jackson. Now here is where this story turns from a tragedy into something far darker, because Conrad Murray did not get that job by accident, and the question of who hired him, who was paying him, and who had something to gain from Michael Jackson's death. These are the questions that a second trial attempted to answer, and these are the questions that most people never heard about. When Murray took the position as Jackson's personal physician in 2009, he was in serious financial trouble. His Las Vegas home was facing foreclosure. He was over $1 million in debt. He was behind on child support payments for multiple children. And then suddenly, he is the personal doctor for the most famous entertainer in the world, set to be paid $150,000 per month under a contract with AEG Live, the concert promoter behind Jackson's upcoming This Is It tour, which was scheduled for 50 sold-out shows at the O2 Arena in London. 50 shows, hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. Here is the conflict of interest that should make your stomach drop. Under the terms of Murray's contract, he could lose his position and his $150,000 monthly salary if the tour was postponed or canceled. His financial survival was tied directly to Michael Jackson performing, and at the same time, he was the person responsible for Michael Jackson's health. Think about that for a moment. The man keeping Jackson alive was financially dependent on Jackson being able to perform, and the man paying Murray, or planning to, was AEG Live, the company with hundreds of millions riding on those 50 London shows. An expert witness in the subsequent civil trial described this arrangement as an egregious conflict of interest, the doctor beholden to the company beholden to the tour, and Michael Jackson caught in the middle. Jackson's own family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against AEG Live, arguing that the promoter had negligently hired, retained, and supervised Conrad Murray, and that they had ignored warning signs about Jackson's deteriorating health in order to keep the tour on schedule. Internal AEG emails introduced during the trial painted a picture of executives more concerned with Jackson's rehearsal attendance than his survival. One email, sent just 11 days before Jackson's death by an AEG Live co-CEO, discussed concerns that Jackson was not showing up to rehearsals and that the tour could be in jeopardy. AEG executives testified they had no idea that Murray was giving Jackson Propofol at night. They claimed they were innocent bystanders, unaware of the medical treatment happening inside the mansion they were renting for Jackson in Holmby Hills. But the jury in the civil case found something remarkable. They found that AEG Live did hire Conrad Murray. They confirmed it, and then, in the same breath, found that Murray was not incompetent for the work he was hired to do, and therefore held AEG not liable for damages. The Jackson family walked away with nothing. AEG Live's CEO released a statement saying he was relieved that the jury recognized that neither he nor anyone at AEG played any part in Michael's tragic death. But the fact remains. A man drowning in debt was hired to watch over the most valuable entertainer on the planet, paid by the promoter who needed that entertainer to perform, and given access to a surgical anesthetic in a private bedroom. And when things went wrong, the delay in calling 911, estimated by some accounts at over 80 minutes from the time Jackson was found unresponsive, ensured that even if there had been any chance of saving him, that chance was gone before help arrived. Now, let's talk about what Michael Jackson himself believed, because in the months leading up to his death, those closest to him witnessed a man who was terrified, not of the tour, not of his debts, terrified of being killed. LaToya Jackson, his sister, went public with what Michael had told her repeatedly in the final months of his life. He told her the same thing over and over. He said it was going to happen. He said they were going to take him out. He told her it was because of his catalog. His catalog. That is the key that unlocks a completely different dimension of this case. Michael Jackson was not just the king of pop. He was one of the wealthiest music rights holders in the world. In 1985, he purchased the ATV Music Publishing catalog for $47.5 million, a catalog that contained the rights to more than 250 Beatles songs, as well as thousands of other valuable tracks. This acquisition made Jackson a target in the music industry. And over the years, as that catalog grew in value to an estimated $750 million or more, the financial stakes surrounding Jackson's ownership became almost incomprehensible. When you die, your assets go to your estate. Jackson's estate, and control over who managed it, became immediately valuable the moment he stopped breathing. LaToya Jackson said her brother explained to her specifically that it was because of his catalog. She described his death as premeditated. She said Murray was the fall guy, a word she used publicly, directly, in statements to the press. Joe Jackson, Michael's father, told Larry King on live television that Michael had told his own children he would be murdered. Paris Jackson, Michael's daughter, later told Rolling Stone that her father would drop hints about people being out to get him, and that at some point he said directly, "They're gonna kill me one day." She said all arrows point to it being a setup. She said every real fan and everyone in the family knows it. These are not random conspiracy theorists speaking. These are the people who lived with Michael Jackson, who spoke to him, who watched him become increasingly frightened in the weeks and months before he died, and every single one of them used the same word: murder. Let's assemble what we actually know. We know that Michael Jackson died from a lethal dose of Propofol, a surgical anesthetic that has absolutely no legitimate use as a home sleep aid. We know that the man administering that drug had no precision dosing equipment, no monitoring devices, and left Jackson unattended while making personal phone calls lasting nearly an hour. We know that when Jackson stopped breathing, there was a delay of as long as 80 minutes before 911 was called, not by his doctor, but by his own staff. We know that the doctor concealed the cause from paramedics who were trying to save Jackson's life. We know that no fingerprints from Michael Jackson were found on the Propofol bottles in that room. We know that the doctor's salary was controlled by the promoter with hundreds of millions at stake in the tour. We know that Jackson himself, in the months before he died, told multiple family members that he would be killed. We know that his catalog, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, transferred to estate control the moment he died. And we know that the one man convicted in connection with his death served less than 2 years in prison, that the corporation potentially tied to his care walked away from court with no liability, that the people Michael Jackson named as a threat were never fully investigated, that the full truth of what happened in that bedroom on the morning of June 25, 2009, has never been publicly established. Conrad Murray always maintained that what happened was an accident, that he was trying to help, that he was weaning Jackson off Propofol, that he loved his patient. But a man who loves his patient does not leave him alone with Propofol in his bloodstream. A man who loves his patient calls 911 immediately when that patient stops breathing. A man who loves his patient tells paramedics what drugs are in the patient's system. Conrad Murray did none of those things. The official verdict was involuntary manslaughter, an accident, a mistake. But here is the question that every investigator, every journalist, every family member, and every thinking person who has looked closely at this case has eventually been forced to ask. Was it? Michael Jackson was weeks away from the most anticipated comeback in music history. He was holding one of the most valuable music catalogs on the planet. He was a man who told his family, his children, that people wanted to kill him because of what he owned. He was surrounded by people whose financial interests were tangled up in his performance and his survival. And then he died under circumstances that his own family described as too convenient, too clean, too scripted to be random. The drug that killed him was not something you stumble into. Someone introduced Michael Jackson to Propofol as a sleep aid. Someone kept supplying it. Someone ordered hundreds of vials of it and had them delivered to a girlfriend's apartment address rather than any medical office. Someone administered it in a private bedroom with no safety equipment, and someone waited instead of calling for help, while the most famous entertainer in the world stopped breathing. Accident or poison, negligence or murder. One man's conviction or the surface layer of something far bigger. The courts made their decision. They gave us the legal answer. But legal answers and true answers are not always the same thing. Michael Jackson told his family what was coming. He told them who was coming for him. He told them why. And then everything he predicted came true in a bedroom in Los Angeles on a June morning, while his doctor talked to his girlfriends on the phone and the clock ran down on the life of the greatest entertainer who ever lived. The case is technically closed, but the questions never stopped, and neither will this investigation.